All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Okay. 30 members and guests, everybody's here. Do we want to do a sign-in sheet for the guests? Other than public comments, I wouldn't think so, not like we normally do. Okay. Since we got 100% present, approve the agenda. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved. Okay, public comments. We're gonna run public comments like we run the commission meeting. You've got one. Everybody's on the sheet. You have 2-minute limit. You can say what you want, anything you want to say pertaining to our agenda, and you have 2 minutes, and your time will start whenever you start talking. So.
Yeah.
My name's Tim Morris. I'm 5th District Commissioner, lifelong Coffee County, and I can't say anything but praises for Coffee County EMS. I can't tell you how many times I've saved both my parents at 123 Hickory Hills Drive, Tullahoma, Tennessee. I've been a proud supporter of them. I support them wholeheartedly. If it's money that it's coming down to, that all this is going on about, then we need to send that to Budget and Finance and get them more money. Back to their success, this started in the early 1970s, the authority did, and even per y'all's minutes of November the 17th of 2022, it appears to me that everybody in this authority agreed that it would remain the same as an authority, even with the mayor saying the authority is satisfied with the missions being accomplished, we will stick with where we're at. If that didn't happen, we, the county commission, of course, now we don't have caucus meetings, so we don't know what's going on. That's why I'm here. What happened? If it came off the rails between November 17th of 2022 and the August meeting of 2023, how come none of us were told?
Okay. That's it, we only have one. So, all right, that's end of the comments, public comment section. You got your minutes with you. Need a motion to approve or modify any of the previous meeting minutes.
I wasn't there.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
got a motion to approve.
Can I make a statement before I second it?
You can approve them. You don't want to make an amendment?
I
Or
mean,
you
I
wanna
really
make
don't know if I can make an amendment, but there was a lot of discussion about the ambulance authority that's not in the minutes.
Okay, well, we can,
I think that's appropriate for her to, since we're approving the minutes, for her to ask that full minutes be added from the recording, from that previous discussion, or a transcript be typed that includes the discussion. That way, that may help to answer some concerns as to what, at least that discussion, because I don't know what was talked about either. So I would think that's an appropriate, full, transparent recommendation. I agree with it.
I'm not saying they're incorrect, but all the information's not on there that we did discuss.
I absolutely agree.
I would think you can go ahead and make a second, and then we can discuss what you
I'll
want
second it with that
added or
amendment.
taken away from the
that
minutes, or
If
whatever
Lori can
statements
add
you
the
want to make.
discussion, some
Right.
of the discussion that we had on there.
Okay, well, we have a motion, are you seconding?
Yes.
In a second, then you can now say what you want.
Well, I would like the discussion added that we had to the minutes. I don't see it on here. All I
I
see
mean, the
is under new
discussion on the
business.
minutes, or the discussion,
Well, it just says we made the motion to change. It doesn't have any discussion.
I think she's
Am I
referring,
overlooking it?
More detail.
where
I
we
think-
talked about,
That will that will get answered on down on, the agenda. If you wanna talk about what was in these minutes, you can, what was on there, and what was, we talked about and not on there. But I think on down here where it says, discuss ambulance authority, I think that would be appropriate.
Well, I disagree.
Time to discuss it.
I disagree because it says, where we're at right now, it's on today's agenda, it says approve/modify the previous meeting minutes. And that's what
Well, she wants to
Commissioner
add-
DeFord has just asked, is that the previous minutes be modified. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're asking that the previous minutes be modified in order to add the full discussion of what you guys talked about during that meeting, the pros, the cons, the why to dissolve the ambulance authority or not. And that's all she's asking. She's not asking to change anything other than to modify the previous minutes as it's outlined in section 5 there.
that's correct.
If you wanna have a discussion on it, then you can start.
I don't
Well,
think she
I
wants to
mean, there's not
discuss, she
really
wants it typed up
anything
in the
else to-
minutes. She wants
to
it,
discuss.
she
I
wants
just
it
would
put
like it-
in the minutes, the actual text of that section of the discussion.
That way it could be a little bit more clear the way things happened and that we did have discussion at that last meeting. We had a lot of discussion, Frank, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there anything recorded?
Yes.
Play the
Yes.
recording.
We have recordings, you
Play
can
the
have that.
recording, have discussion. That would dispel a lot of things that have been said in the last week, that this has never been talked about,
Right.
and where it came from.
I mean, because if you just look at
it's
these
never been
minutes,
talked
it looks
about
like we
in front of the full
did, never
authority.
discussed it.
It was a quorum, though.
With last minute changes made
Whatever the case
to
may
the
be.
invitation.
Whatever the case may be, and I'm not gonna say a whole lot here, but I'm going to say it. Number one, when you have a majority of people present, Robert's Rules of Order calls that a quorum. When a quorum votes all in the same way, that's called a unanimous vote. That's not up for conjecture, that's the way it is. It was pitched all over the place on the radio. Also, you called me Sunday and asked me about it, and I told you I didn't have anything to do with it. But you implied on the radio that this is some conspiracy with the mayor.
I didn't say mayor, I said I don't know what the conspiracy is, and I did
Okay,
imply
well,
that
well,
it seems like there's
you wanna
something.
say-
One at a time.
Yeah.
I'll let you speak when, as soon as he gets
Okay.
there.
I will tell you the problems that are here. Right now, you've got this lady, this gentleman, and this gentleman are in the winning seat, and they chose to be there. Okay, you guys are in the losing seat. That doesn't mean this can't be turned around.
See, that's a mistake you make.
I don't care.
With all due respect,
I
no,
know.
this isn't about winning
I
and
don't
losing.
care.
No, I don't
Absolutely.
care about, that's the thing, you're letting
All
ego
right,
get
hold
into the
on,
play because
hold
there's gotta
on.
be a winner and loser. It's
Hold
all
on.
about the community.
Hey,
It's not
trust
about
me.
you winning or we losing, and that's how you're spelling it. It's
Trust
about the
me.
community winning, and the community wins when we have a good EMS
Trust me.
system.
You,
That's
I'll
how it
promise
is.
you, I'll let you speak.
Right
But we
now,
gotta go in
these
order.
guys have the floor, because their motion won. Your guys does not. I'm here to tell you, your problem lies within your authority. I've not had a single conversation since November about taking over an authority. It was approached to me in November. That's the only time I've ever talked about it. This entire thing is organic. It's organic from problems that you guys have amongst yourselves, and you've got to work it out. I don't want extra work. If you think I wanna take on all these extra employees and do all this other extra crap, you're crazy. That's not what I'm after. I've got so much other stuff to do. So you guys have a communication problem that y'all have to fix. And whatever that is, y'all have gotta do that. I'm not a puppet master back here. I've not done a damn thing about it. I got a call from the newspaper the night it happened, asking me what happened. I didn't know what the hell happened. Then he called me about an hour later to tell me. I had zero, okay?
Well, join the
idea.
club, we didn't either.
Well, whatever. What I'm saying is.
Now you know how we feel.
Well, what I'm saying is, you guys have to work out your own problems. If you can't work out your problems, you're gonna end up dissolving an authority.
We didn't know we had a problem.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I mean,
Okay.
in November, we didn't have
Are
a
you-
problem.
You done, or you want,
I'm done for now.
you sure? Okay. Mr. Keel, you was the first one to want to speak up.
So, if I implied that I understood who was playing puppet master here, I did not mean to imply it was you. I don't know. And I think I've talked to a bunch of the commissioners here, and I haven't said the mayor did anything. I said, I don't understand where this is coming from. And that's been my problem. I don't know who the puppet master is. We have worked on this authority for years now, and we've not had any contention. There's not been any fights we've not had any issues. In November, everything was hunky-dory. Every meeting, everything's hunky-dory. We're not having any communication issues that we understood we were having. This came out of the blue. Came out of the blue in November. We talked about it. It seemed like it was an open and shut deal. We said, hey, everything's going good. We are conducting the business of ambulance authority in an exceedingly good manner. And since then, we have increased the number of ambulances that are on the road. We didn't buy another ambulance, but we've got more units on the road. We've increased our employee issues. To me, our shoot times are great. Our response times are great. We didn't know we had an issue. And then all of a sudden, we miss a meeting. And we were the most vocal ones, I will say, in November. Jay and I were very vocal about this not being dissolved. Or at least with the argument that we had in November, because there was not really any argument made. I mean, you were there. There was no really strong argument to say, hey, we need to dissolve this and make it a committee. So we were all hunky-dory. We miss a meeting, all of a sudden, mysteriously, it gets amended, the agenda's amended, and it just seems a little strange that when the two people who are not there, that are the most vocal, that you all of a sudden amend this agenda. It looks like it was opportunistic. I'm not saying it was. I'm saying what it looks like. All of a sudden, this is on there. 40% of the ambulance authority is not there on a meeting that was that was canceled and rescheduled, which happens. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong. You got COVID. You didn't intend to have COVID, but still, we weren't able to attend because it was rescheduled, and this gets added, and it just seems like it got rushed really quickly through. We had not had since November. We've not had a second of discussion about this until we're not there, and then all of a sudden, I didn't imply that you did. I just don't know why this is why it had to get done so quickly. Something that's been in place since 1972 and is having no obvious problems, and that it all of a sudden has to be done so quickly with so little discussion. It just seems weird, and I don't know that anybody wouldn't think so. If this was a brand new experiment that you'd started last year, whoever started the ambulance authority, and we say, hey, this isn't working out, let's go a different direction. Maybe you could do that, a knee-jerk reaction type style. This thing's been working since 1972. So why does it need to be a committee all of a sudden? And I'm responding to you because you responded to me, but I don't know. I guess I would ask.
When the vote takes place, in my mind, I'm thinking I gotta start shifting gears over here to start putting a committee together. And that's
So what you're saying is you prefer not to have that burden on you, and you would prefer it maintain
I want this.
as an authority?
I want these problems to stop.
Okay, they will. They'll stop tonight one way or the other. I have every interest in putting the community first, as I've always done. This isn't a pride thing for me.
The quorum needs to increase substantially, not only to commissioners, but also to me and the people. You need to become polite.
Yes, sir. I will, sir. Become polite.
So could we get a list
You-
of some of the issues
but-
that we're having? We've not, as far as a committee, as an authority, could you elaborate on that?
Okay, hold on a second. For one thing, when one's talking, we don't interrupt. Okay, I promise you, or do you?
No,
do you
you
want-
keep
or
going.
you-
Frank's up.
If you wanna say something, you just look at me and tell me you wanna speak next, like he did, and then we'll go to there. But let him finish what he says, then you'll have an opportunity to speak if you wanna speak. Is that understood with everybody?
Absolutely.
Okay? All right, Frank.
First off, there's no hidden agenda, okay? No, there's nothing, the only agenda is here is to make sure that the public has ambulances and on time and gets there quickly. That's it, okay? So I don't appreciate the whole conspiracy theory that's been thrown out, okay? So, no, I don't appreciate that. I've been doing this for 30 years, serving the public, and that's what I've continued to try to do. Okay, I'm not saying there's a problem. I'm not saying there's a bad problem. I think the majority of the discussion that you'll find when Lori plays that was directed to Paul and Mike. Am I not correct?
That's not how I remember it.
I mean, when we were talking
No, Paul
and
said-
talked, and you finally answered that you didn't care. But anyway, that was the whole thing, was throwing it out. It didn't really have to. I really don't care, y'all. We can stay in authority, we cannot. It was a simple discussion that we had, and I throwed a motion out there. If they didn't want to second it, they didn't have to. That's all it was. There was no hidden agenda, there was no puppets, no none of that. And I don't really appreciate having that throwed on me. And I don't really like the phone call I got, Dr. J.
Well, the phone call was out of respect because I included you. You never have to worry about me saying something about you or doing
no,
something when you're not there. I called you and I said I think it was cowardly to do so and to move forward. Those were my words. I think it was a cowardly move to move forward without the full committee present, the full authority. That's
Instead of calling and asking, hey, can we talk about
I
this
said
or
what
not?
I said what happened. You said we just had to move forward. I said why didn't you have the courtesy to wait? And you said, listen, it's going to take 4 to 6 months to go through legislative committee and then in front of the full commission, so we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. 4 to 6
I
minutes
don't
took
believe you
12
said that,
days.
Jay.
Well, okay.
Because,
that's hearsay.
no, well, it sure is, because, Jay, I'm not here to argue.
I'm not either. My job's not here to argue either. My job is like Dr. Keel said.
Okay,
Something's fishy when we have a discussion in November. It goes through. We have, and I will say for the people here and the press, just about every vote I've been on the last 8, 9 years, however long I've been on this, has been unanimous.
Okay.
We've voted unanimously. We've agreed. I don't want people to think been a big source of contention among this authority. There's not been. I think the direction of every single person on here has always been to try to do what's best to give the medics what they need to show up in a timely manner. We've tried to work with staffing issues, and we are still doing that. But I've had the courtesy of delaying votes before when not all the members could be present. I've had the courtesy where I've said that, where I've said, I think that's a big issue, and I think we need to table it till next month until all the members could be there out of respect. So when we talk about politeness, Mayor, and when we talk about respect, I think it's due respect shown when you include the opinions of everyone so there can be an open and transparent discussion. Had there been a vote with all members, or y'all delayed it till this month and you said, hey, I think we need to make it an ambulance or move it over to a committee, we would have a debate and it may have passed 3-2 to move it over to a standing committee. And you know what? None of this would have happened. There would be no angst or pointing of fingers, you know.
He very well could have went 5-0,
It-
because I don't know that I wouldn't have voted for it. I don't have enough information about it to be able to tell you what my opinion is on the merits of the vote, because
And I've said this publicly,
seen
my job's not to defend the authority. That's not my job, and I don't think it should be viewed as our job to defend the authority. You know, I think all of us have other things that we could do on a Thursday night. You know, we're not here. We're here, each one of us are here as public servants trying to do, because we each bring experience, 30 years of experience. I'll give you that, absolutely. Missy, 911 operator, you're one of the few people that I believe truly wants, every decision you make is for the best. I do. I believe that. You know, I believe that. And I believe that when you worked all night before that last meeting, you were up 24, 36 hours, and then you came into a meeting probably dead tired, and you still came, you know? And I think everybody on here is doing the best job they can. But what I would ask is that on a major decision like taking an ambulance authority and dissolving it completely, if it just affected us 5 individuals, I get it. But it affects the entire community. It affects every single person that calls 911. It affects every single medic. It affects every single medic. It does. And with all due respect, when you said it would give the mayor the ultimate authority to make the hiring and firing decisions, that's true if it goes under your leadership. And you know what? Some people may be okay with that. I may be okay with that. But I tell you, I don't know who the next mayor is going to be. I don't. And because of those reasons, that's what gives me pause to say, if it's not going to, the next mayor, I voted for you, Mr. Matheny. I did. And I have faith in you to do what's best for the community. I really do. I think I appreciate that, and I think you didn't put me here because I'm a yes man or a no man. I've got respect for every single person here, and I want to tune down the vitriol. I want to tune it down. I want to get back to adult conversations about major topics. So I'll say this. I'll swallow my pride. If I've offended you, I apologize. I'll say it publicly. That's not my intent, is to offend. Okay? It's not my intent to be impolite. My intent is I was put on this on this authority because I have some experience in the medical field that brings this to a table. As a former EMT, as a physician for however many years, I have experience just like you do in law enforcement, you do in fire, you do in emergency 911, you understand the medical, you've been a commissioner. We all bring something to the table. But to dissolve an authority I just think it needs more consideration. I think we need to hit the pause button, and I appreciate Commissioner Brown for making that motion last week to just say, hey, I'm not saying I'm going to vote for it or against it. I just want to hit the pause button to understand it, and that's what I want to do. And if we want to, it's already in front of the commission now, so I mean, it's not going to do me any good one way or the other to say let's have another vote. I mean, there's Robert Rules of Order that other people know way more about than I do, but I just think that pausing, slowing down, and getting to the meat of the matter. If you're telling me, Mr. Mayor, that you do not want the added responsibility, and you have a lot, you do not want the added responsibility of putting a safety committee together that's going to be in charge of EMS and a lot of the decisions because you've got enough on your plate, and you feel confidence in this board to continue, you can bring that up at the next commissioners meeting and make a decision together. I mean, that's certainly under your purview. I'll be here the third Thursday of the next month if so called upon. If it dissolves with the next commissioner meeting and our commissioners make that decision to dissolve it, I'll watch Thursday Night Football on the third Thursday of next month. But I will say this. I do have a respect for every single person here, and it's not about winning. It's not about being in a winning seat or a losing seat. I don't look at my position on this role if I get the vote or don't. I don't look at it, and I understand in politics there's winners and losers. There's the person who won the election and the person who lost it, and when there's different sides of a vote, there's the people who win and people who lose. My job isn't to win. That's not my job. That's not why I'm here. I'm not trying to win. I'm gonna go to work tomorrow and see a lot of patients. There's other ways I win on a daily basis. I'm not here for the victory of the vote. So I'm just here to make things better.
I'm a little troubled.
Hold on. Missy
Well,
requested to speak.
let me start out by saying, first of all, and I'm going to eat some crow also and apologize. But first of all, I didn't know. I asked before. I think most of you all were here. Were you all two coming? Had anybody heard from you all? I just assumed you might be running a little bit late. Didn't know that you weren't going to be there. It was added to the agenda at the beginning for discussion. Had no idea it was going to come. Excuse my voice. I've been sick for a week. But had no idea that it was going to come up for a vote that night. Had no idea. I'm open to discuss anything. I figured you all probably might just be running a little late from work. Had no idea there was a mix-up on when the meeting was rescheduled. I was more worried when he sent that text out about being exposed the night before at a meeting to COVID. So when it did come up for vote, and a lot of factors have changed, in my opinion. If you remember when we voted on it the first time, and the mayor was there, I voted with y'all not to dissolve it.
We didn't have a
actually-
vote. We didn't even come up.
vote.
There wasn't even a motion.
There was never a vote.
There was a
Well,
discussion.
I was for, okay, there was a discussion,
Sure,
and
I
I
remember.
was not for to dissolve it for different reasons at the time. And different things, in my opinion, have changed. I think that some things in the county have got larger than this authority. And I should have tabled that vote that night, and I would have voted the same way I did if you all had have been there. But out of respect, I should have tabled that vote and let you all give your side of the story, voice your opinions, whatever. I do apologize for that. That should have been handled that way.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry for that.
Thank you. And like I said, you know, I think you're one of the best. I do. I think you're selfless, and your intentions are true. You know, you really want what's best, and I hope we can all come to a way to figure out how to move forward with whatever it is, whether it's a commission or it's a safety committee.
And we've
You know.
never had any,
Friction or no.
friction, fights. We've always been able to work things out, agree, or talk about stuff. We have a very complex group, a good group. That was actually one of my concerns the first time, is you two being on the authority brings a lot to the table.
Well, that was one of the questions you alluded to or referenced communication issues and some friction, I guess, between the members of the authority. And I don't know that I have ever felt that. But would anyone like to voice an opinion about friction? Do y'all as direct, you know?
I think that's all directed from this last
Weeks.
meeting. I think nobody heard a lot from us till this last little meeting and the way everything went down, and I see the way it looks. And it makes it look like there was a bunch of contingency between all of us, and there's never been.
Yeah,
Between
that's the
any
way I
of
see
us,
it,
there's
too.
not
I
been
just-
any miscommunication.
I received a text from the Manchester Times asking me about the meeting after it was over. That's how I found out.
Well, do you have any examples of any kind of issues that we've had? You said we needed to fix our problems internally.
Well, I think
Do
the
you
fact-
have?
the fact that we're here right now and started out under this demeanor, there's something wrong.
Well, yeah.
There's something.
Yeah, there
wrong.
was.
We felt like there's something
You know,
wrong
so
too.
That's why I'm anxious to see his presentation. I wanna make sure, you know, I've done a lot of research on neighboring counties, how many ambulances they have on the road. I wanna make sure we've got enough people. I wanna make sure all of those things. And the reason I've been doing that the last 3 weeks is because I thought I was gonna end up making a committee to handle this. I've not done the first page turn of due diligence on the ambulance authority or any of these people, period, until 3 weeks ago, when I thought it was gonna land in my lap. Then I started researching and doing some things. So that's been my entire involvement. There's people in this room that have been to talk to me over the last 6 or 7 months, and I've told them, my number one thing is for this guy, or whoever sits in his seat in the future, to quit having monthly pains every time there's a month, wondering if there's gonna be a problem. Let's just smooth things out. Let's try to get things worked out. If it lands in my lap to do it, I will do a good job running it, however it takes. I'll put the right people in it and I'll do the right job. But guys, we've got a lot to do. We've got a lot going on. We've got a lot growing. The last thing I'm trying to do is pick a fight with an authority, but I am gonna support the commissioners. I'm gonna support the vote that was taken. Do I think we need to end up in a certain place tonight after all this? Yes, I think we do. And I think we're probably gonna head that way, where we can cooperate and do some things together again. I hope that's where we end up. But the posture is where it is right now, and that's just the bottom line. That's the political animal of it, is that you've got a motion that was made and it was passed, and that's gonna have to be rescinded to move forward. So that's just where we are right now. It can't magically disappear. It's gonna take negotiations to talk about it. I had hoped maybe we could talk about it some, at least put it off last Thursday to later in the meeting. Maybe we could have had some of these discussions with the whole commission. Would have probably been a lot healthier. And then table the whole thing, if there's that much concern about it. But if you two, or you three, or all 5 of you decide you wanna resolve it, if you decide you wanna make I think a public safety committee probably is in our future in the next few years. Talked to several counties today, just getting a feel for how they transition. Which, by the way, there's only 4 authorities in the state. And so we gotta find, I think that's something we need to task ourselves with, is why are there only 4 authorities in the state, 91 committees running ambulance services? Why is that? You know, the billing, my office spends $140,000 a year doing the billing for the authority. And we haven't asked them for anything back from that. Don't intend to ask for anything back from it. But I could sure as hell pull that if I wanted to. Last thing I wanna do for anybody here, so there's been cooperation, there's been things going on. But y'all need to not let this stuff, however it takes, best you can, not let it spill out. You know, if you want me more involved as an ad hoc member, something of that nature, I'd be glad to. If you think I'm on a power grab, ask Rennie Bell if I've been after his authority. Absolutely not. You know why? I've had 0 people ever complain to me about it. Zero. I've had a lot of people come to me and just say they're dissatisfied with this, they're dissatisfied with that. A lot of them in confidentiality, and I'm gonna keep those confidences. So, yes, I stand prepared to do whatever it takes, and whatever the commission, the authority tells me to do. But when I make these statements like I make, bottom line is, these three individuals right now, they hold the cards in this meeting. So y'all got to have a talk about how you're gonna fix that, if you're gonna fix it, and then we move forward from there.
So,
But I just assure you, I have not been asking any of these people to manipulate anything, to do anything. I mentioned, you mentioned the full-time county fire department. That's all conjecture, but I think it's coming. I brought all the county fire chiefs in. If there's any here, they'll know that I brought every one of them in, and I told them, this may be coming. Be getting ready for it. Don't let somebody else do it for you. Was that not my exact words? And that's all. That's all I ever said. I've never said anything else about it. Period. I didn't say, well, I wanna take this over, I wanna take that over. I just said, don't let it surprise you and let somebody else do it for you, because they will. And that's where we are.
Okay,
We're on approve the agenda from last.
I know we are. Have we talked about this enough? Well, we've already approved the
Have we
agenda.
already skipped
Not the agenda, the
nine?
Well, looks like we saved time down the
Now, have
road.
we said all we're gonna say on this,
I think the
Till
vote,
line
I think
C.
the votes for Ms. Missy, Chairman or Commissioner Missy's, that's
So are
where
you
we're
good?
with the vote.
are
So-
you,
To
Add the
amend the
minutes.
minutes, yes,
are you satisfied?
yes.
Me?
Is everybody satisfied?
are we gonna, is this?
What was the final?
We're just, we're
Yeah,
just
that's
approving,
what
right now, we're just approving the minutes. We're going to get on with the meeting.
Yeah.
So,
We'll
No,
call
but
for a
her,
vote.
her question of adding more to the previous minutes was.
Is
where
that
we
more of
got
an
off
amendment?
track.
Isn't that more of an amendment?
that would be more of an amendment.
And I think it would basically, if there's a meeting next month, if the authority is still present next month, then we could amend or vote on both months' meetings to approve last month's and next month's.
So we good?
You mean last
I'm
month
asking.
and this month?
Right.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay, so we're just postponing voting on approving the amendments.
yes.
On this particular item.
But we are gonna have some more discussion on the authority, correct?
Well, it's listed down here, so we will.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Review approved write-offs and bad debts from budget and finance. You've got that, no, I've got that, I'm sorry. I thought I'd already sent it around. The write-offs for last month, the month of August, was $9,406.97.
You wanna explain that to the public, so that they understand what we're doing when we do write-offs?
The write-offs are, for some reason or another, are deaths that, they're billed for, and they're, for some reason or another, they're not unable to pay. And this come from the collection agency, or is this?
Budget finance.
Huh?
Budget finance.
Budget and finance. These are bills that hadn't been paid, probably went through the process of collection agency, and they're just not payable by anybody, so we're having to absorb that.
It's usually
these
deceased
write-offs.
individuals.
Yeah, it's always deceased individuals, okay?
This is yours.
I'll sign that.
This is your copy.
No. Okay. I entertain a motion to approve the write-offs.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, okay, Keel made the motion and Watkins seconded. All right, All in favor of saying aye? None opposed? So okay, next item of business will be the quarterly financial report. And normally, we do this every quarter with Ms. Edinger. She gives us a financial report and tells us what our standing is. She came last month, is that right, Bonnie? She came last month and give us our report. And since that report, there haven't been any red flags or anything coming up that's come up since the last report she's given. So I'll accept a motion to, well, we don't have to do a motion on this. Just look over them real quick and then we'll move on if you don't have any questions. We'll say she's been kind of happy with the way things have been going financially the last 2 or 3 times she's talked, so.
I second that, she said that today.
Did she? Okay. Is everybody good?
Yeah.
Good, we'll move on to the next item. Will be the director's report by Director Bonner.
Good evening. This report I do every month and have.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I think we need to hit
Oh,
the
that's right.
display button
You gotta
up
hit
there.
the presentation button so that it goes out on TV. While he's doing that, I give this report every month. This version is a little longer than my normal one for a couple of reasons. Number one, the mayor had asked me a couple of questions, and so I wanted to answer those better. And because it is now televised, I felt like the general viewing audience would need better understanding of some of the reports that y'all have seen for 10 years. Anybody
Is it
know
working?
when we're good?
Did I not hit that?
I don't know. I don't know what happens to say it happened.
Maybe try to move from your home screen, see if anything happens. Yeah, there we go, it's going.
Is it going now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So last month, we responded to 1,014 calls. Year-to-date, 7,634. The previous month, we ran 970, and the previous year, on the same month, we ran 1,034. We're averaging 32 calls, 0.71 calls a month, which is up from the average of the previous year of 30 and 7/8. Average calls per month is up to 954.25, which is actually a little down from the previous year. This is just a historical reference for those that have never seen or heard about us. Starting in the 1970s, we ran 4 ambulances, 2 in Manchester, 2 in Tullahoma, and we were averaging about 4,652 calls a month. Then in 2005, as call volume, I'm sorry, you're right. As call volume went up to 5,265, they voted to add a 3rd station and a 5th unit. And then in 2011, we added a 6th unit and a 4th station as call volume increased to 6,770. However, in August of 2011, a financial decision was made that we were not bringing in enough money, and the current director was told he had to lay off a crew and go back to 5 units. That has stayed the same, despite the fact that call volume had gone up to 8,041 a year. Now we are at 12,363 for last year and still only running with 5 units. And so if you look historically and say, are we keeping up? No. That's something that I've said since I've been here, that it's obvious we're not keeping up. Even if we only had added 1 more, it's just obvious to me we are not keeping up with the same level of coverage we were doing from day one. Now, discussion about whether that level of coverage was adequate or too much, obviously is a whole nother story. But we obviously have stagnated here since 2011. Calls per month. Obviously, this is always a zigzag chart. February is always low because there's less days in the month. But generally, as you can see, it went up tremendously. Right here, that's not going to show, but where it says 573, that was when COVID hit Coffee County. It wasn't when it actually was discovered, but when we started having several cases in the county and suddenly nobody wanted to be on an ambulance or in a hospital. And so our call volume plummeted. It took them 1 month to get over that, and then it came back to its regular, and then it exploded up to 1,100 a month, a couple of months. And that has not receded, but just slightly. Comm center standbys, if you don't know how this works, we have 2 ambulances in Tullahoma and 2 or 3 in Manchester, depending on staffing. When, for example, both of the Tullahoma ambulances are on a call, one of the Manchester ambulances will go to the communications center and stand by in case there is yet a 3rd call in Tullahoma, so that ambulance is closer. Same thing happens the other direction. If both the Manchester ambulances are out, a Tullahoma truck comes up for the same reason. We do this a lot, and as call volume has exploded, standbys have exploded. And there are days when you'll get 3 and 4 calls all in Tullahoma in 30 minutes time. There are days the same thing will happen in Manchester, and all the ambulances will end up on this end of the world.
Quick question just on the side.
Sure.
When we need to be backed up by a neighboring county for whatever reason, who's in charge of making that call and making sure that's done?
When the
Mutual aid.
Do I-
You're talking about
Yes,
mutual aid?
yes.
When the last ambulance of the, however many are on duty that day goes out, they notify the communication center. Please notify neighboring counties and agencies and put them on standby as we are out of ambulances. Then if another call was to come in before we get a unit available, they try to reach out to those same agencies to see, can you respond for us?
That includes not just counties, but also is AEDC still part of that?
AEDC, Vanderbilt and Tullahoma, any ambulance that's around. Calls by zone. There are 4 zones in our county. And so if you start from the bottom, other is neighboring counties. If we get called mutual aid to Moore County or Bedford, or just like we were just talking about when we need them, if they need us, then that line is the bottom line, and as you can see, it's pretty flat. The purple line above that is the new Union Station, and as you can see, it stays pretty consistent. The next 2 lines are Tullahoma North and Tullahoma South, same thing, they've increased a little bit. The top line is the Manchester Station, and as you can see, that's where our fluctuations are, and that's where our explosion in call volume has been for the last several months. Another way of looking at that is this map. So the pink section is the new Union Station zone, yellow is north, blue is south, and green is the Manchester zone. So obviously you can see from that why Manchester zone is so hard to predict, because it is such a large zone. The number in big print is the number for last month. The number in parentheses is the average over the last 10 years. I started in July of 13, and I've kept data ever since then. And so if you look at New Union, for example, we ran 56 last month. From July the 13th until last month, we averaged 65 a month there. And you can look at Tullahoma, those numbers vary a little, but not a lot. Again, Manchester averages 440, and we ran 599. It is the big swing, and most of that is attributed to its large size. Run data, shoot time. Shoot time is the time from when the communication center tones out the call until we have an ambulance en route. And we work very hard to keep that as low as possible. It currently averages 1 minute and 4 seconds. Excuse me, going back to July of 13, it averages 1 minute and 5 seconds. So again, pretty straightforward. Response time is from the time that ambulance says they're en route until they arrive on the scene. 7 minutes, 39 seconds, 10-year average, 7 minute, 11 seconds. Average scene time, which is how long they're on the scene until they go route to hospital. 15 minutes, 42 seconds, average 16, 14. Total 911 call is from the time the call is received until that ambulance says they're back in service and able to run another call, which is important when we're as busy as we are. And it averages 49 minutes, 55 seconds against a 10-year average of 50 minutes and 41 seconds. Busiest day of the month, last month was Friday, and it is the busiest day of all the days, but this board will tell you every month when I give this, it bounces around. There is no rhyme or reason to say one day we should do something different staffing wise, because next month it could be Sunday or Tuesday. It moves all over the place.
Director, could you explain, you're done with the busiest day, right,
Yes, sir?
and the time? When you get done with the day, I want to ask you a question, when you get done with the busiest time of the day. We
Okay.
already went through that.
So busiest time of day is from, it's an hour, the computer software breaks it down by hours, and so it's always an hour window. Last month it was from 11 a.m. to noon. Our generally busiest time is from 3 to 4. That is very subjective. A lot of times from 8 in the morning is a busy time for us. At 10 at night, there's a busy time. And they may be 1 or 2 calls less busy than the busiest, but, you know, just by pure numbers, that time is the absolute busiest. But usually it's only by a couple of calls over some of the other times a day.
Okay, on the, go back up to the average scene time, 15 minutes, 42 seconds, and the total time. Could you explain what they're doing at that time that they're sitting there inside that ambulance?
So, of course, once they arrive on scene, go in, address your patient, find out what their concerns are, and then start initiation some type of care, and then get them onto the cot, move the cot to the ambulance, get the cot in the ambulance. Then we're going to take vital signs and put them on a cardiac monitor, check their blood glucose level, start an IV. Some of that is done on the scene, and some of that is done en route to the hospital. Depends on the patient's condition and what the urgency that we feel that needs done. So, and sometimes just loading the patient is a 15-minute job, depending on if they're upstairs or in a tiny bathroom somewhere. So that time varies. I got trauma patients that are trapped in a car. You may be on the scene an hour, but
And that's an average.
yes,
Right, that's your average.
Right.
That's an average.
So it takes into account those long
correct.
extrications on, the fire department may be doing on
Right.
the interstate.
So you assume that there are some we're only on the scene 5 or 10 minutes, because for the average to be in the middle, there had to be some long ones, there had to be some short ones.
And they had to perform certain procedures sometimes from different hospitals, because different hospitals request certain things to be done before they're.
Sure, medications that we can
Medications
give
and
also,
IVs.
and then of course there are state standards for EMS that say if you have a patient with chest pain, these are the things we expect you to do.
Correct.
And so sometimes that takes time, and sometimes people are concerned when they see the ambulance loaded and we're not moving immediately,
Right.
and that's the things that are going on in there. And sometimes that is slower than others, but again, it depends on what all we're trying to get done. If you're intubations and things like that, can sometimes you're better to get that done sitting still. I have done it moving, but your success rate's a little better for an IV sitting still.
Okay, thank you.
This is a chart. When I started, our shoot time was at just under 144, and the ambulance authority said we need to do better, and I agreed, and so we kept pushing that down until we were able to get it to where that red line is about your 1 minute mark. The dip here in July of 22 was the communication center changed the way their CADs looked, new software update, I'm not sure. And it suddenly put our en route time the same as our dispatch time, and so we had these 1 second dispatch times. And so we had to work that out with them and say that's not right, what is, and so you see once we worked that bug out, it went right back up where it was. But that's why there's a dip there. This is the average response time in a chart form. Again, varies very little. It's actually, our response time is actually lower right now than it has been recently. So, but it bounces up and down, but very little.
So
It's pretty consistent.
In layman's terms, tell me if I'm wrong, but that just means if you call 911 anywhere within the city, county limits, rather, chances are within 8 minutes, you're gonna have
Sure, and
a response.
obviously if you're in
Insane.
Beech Grove,
Right,
it's
it's gonna be
25
longer, it's gonna be,
minutes.
it's an average.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
chest pain
long run
centers
out there.
are supposed to have EKGs within 10 minutes. but
Right.
Not everybody gets that EKG within 10, it's the average.
yeah, because it's a big county. And so it would take a lot more stations a lot closer to these areas to bring that down.
So in comparing with other surrounding counties, there are logistics. I mean, it's not always an apples to apples comparison because you have very remote areas with less stations, say in Grundy County.
Right.
You know,
Of the
so it
counties-
doesn't, a lower response time on their end where it may be not lower, but if it's 20 minutes or 15 minutes, it doesn't mean, you know, that's a bad thing necessarily that they're not doing right. It just means the logistics of where they have to get to from where their stations are located.
Yeah, and of the neighboring counties that I was able to get a number from, 7.5, 8:37, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, those were the average numbers they gave me. Same problem. You know, if your station's in one city in the center of the county, then, and I'll use Franklin County, they got some long runs down to Belvedere, you know. And so that's gonna make your average look worse than it actually is because, again, for every 15-minute run to, or 25-minute run to Lakewood Park and Beech Grove, there's a 2-minute run somewhere in Tullahoma that makes it average 7, you know. Same thing for the scene time. Again, in 10 years' time, very little variation. It just, American Heart Association currently would like for us to work CPR calls on the scene for at least 20 minutes where we find them. That has actually pushed our scene time up a little bit. A lot of times in previous years, we would get that patient loaded and we get en route and we do everything en route to the hospital, you know. But American Heart Association says survival rates are better if everything is started right where you find them. And so we push the medics, look, take your stuff in and do it there on the scene, and let's hope that that helps. And of course, obviously we believe their studies are to be true, but that affects scene time because now you're on the scene intentionally.
That's national protocol.
Yes.
system.
Total call times have actually decreased considerably over the 10 years. Again, starting about pandemic time, and a lot of that as staffing issues got worse. We pushed the crews a little bit. Hey, I need you to get back in service as soon as you can. Maybe another call waiting. Used to be when they finished moving their patient to the hospital and they would do their paperwork, they would still be at the hospital. And now you'll hear them, if you monitor our radio, say back in service at Heart and on paperwork. Well, so they're still at Heart and finishing their paperwork, but now they're actually in service. They've put themselves back in service because they could run another call and many times have to run another call and come back and finish paperwork after that call, you know. So that, you'll see that has lowered that total call time only because they're literally saying they're in service while they're still trying to get paperwork done. Busiest time, that's a hard one to even attempt to chart. What I used is the ending time, just so that there could be a chart. It's hard to get a 1 hour moving around. Again, same thing. It stays pretty much right in the middle of the day. Unit status is the other item we talk about. We have 8 ambulances. You'll see listed by the year the ambulance was made, being the cab. The next one that says box is the year that the box on the back of the ambulance was made. We do what's called remounts, where we can take that box off of an ambulance and put it on a new chassis. And so those numbers aren't always the same. The top one there, a 2012 unit, was both a new unit with a new box. The one below it, a 2014 ambulance, but the box came off of a 2001 unit. And you'll see where I've written can't remount, because by the time that box has gone through 8 years on the first ambulance and 8 years on the second ambulance, and now because we're not getting an ambulance every year like we used to, now you're looking at a 20-year-old box, and that's just really a lifespan of a box.
Did we get rid of the Mercedes, the smaller? We did.
Yeah. The next one is the make and model. The next one is the engine. I hope to drop that column, but the members who've been on here a long time know when I first came, we were blowing engines on a real regular basis, and so I started having to try to monitor. So, for example, that oldest Ford is a 2012, and in 2015, we had to put a new engine and a new transmission in it at 110,000 miles, what the number in parentheses is. I felt like that's not acceptable, and we bought my 4 engines, 2 transmissions. We were having trouble. So we switched to a Chevrolet product, and as you can see, we've not replaced an engine yet in any of the Chevrolets. This last one was a Ford, but it's a gasoline engine. They were having trouble with their diesel engines. And so we have saved the county. We were paying about $15,000 a piece for those engines at the time, and that was several years back now. So this has saved the county money. Whether you're a Ford fan or a Chevrolet fan, this is what's saving us some money. Next issue is staffing. We are budgeted for 33 full-time employees, not including myself, Paul, and Lori, but the actual on the ambulance crews. We currently have 8 full-time openings. All 8 of them need to be paramedics. That's the area we suffer in, is getting paramedics. We have 3 people out on work comp right now, 2 of them being medics, 2 with back injuries and 1 with a shoulder. We have 1 out on medical for knee replacement. We have 1 in medic school right now. We have 2 in AEMT school. We don't have anybody in basic school, and we don't have any drivers needing school. As a quick reference for those not familiar, the state loosened the standards as the shortage nationwide kept pushing us harder and harder to say, okay, you can have a basic on an ambulance instead of an advanced. Used to be you had to have an advanced and a paramedic on every ambulance in an ALS service. They loosened that to say you could have basics. Kept getting worse and worse. They loosened it again, said, okay, you can hire a driver who's CPR trained as long as within 1 year that person has a medical license, a basic EMT license. So anybody that we would have hired as a driver would have had to get through basic school within 1 year. And luckily, like I say, right now, we're not in that scenario.
Okay, the mayor has a question.
I'd like the public to know that the county is now working with you guys to send some people to school and to help pay them. You want to talk a little bit about how that's going?
Well, I got it wrote.
It's actually on the agenda
It's
because
actually on the agenda.
Next thing, then, let's look at the numbers. Does this mean we have 18 people working right now of the 33?
33 minus 8.
Then you
That
got
should be
3
more than
more.
18. Oh, well, okay, if you start, yeah, right, count the other 3. So you're looking at 11. So, yeah.
Take away 15 from 33, there's 18.
Wait a minute, where'd you get 15? 8 and 3 is all you're adding.
Then the ones in medic school and EMT.
They're still
school,
working.
They're still working on
Right,
trucks,
right.
okay.
Yeah, they're still working. So just the 11. And I've got a chart. So each month I show this, which is just a colorful version of the same data, but it tells you every day of the month, every month of the year, how many ambulances were on duty that day. And so you can see 5 is green, 4 is yellow, 3 is red. There's a couple of strays, like 3.5, where half the shift we had 4 crews and the other half we only had 3. Somebody leaves halfway through a shift and you end up going down. You'll see the stray numbers. So this is 13 months, August of this year going back to August of last year, so you can have at least compare that actual month. There's a lot of variance month over month. In other words, it's not like we could say every December we're shorter staffed. It pretty much runs the same. But you can see from wanting to have 5 ambulances, we are still struggling. Now, if you compare that, this is staffing from April of 2020. I can go all the way back to 13, but the little blocks were too tiny, you really couldn't see anything. So I have the data, just couldn't show it. So I started back in 2020 when the pandemic again hit this county. You can see that day we were fully staffed, everybody's showing up. We didn't have but 2 days we were short because we've got good people. They knew we had a pandemic. That didn't scare them off. They showed up and they were ready to take that challenge and get the job done. As the pandemic wore on, of course, our people start physically wearing out because of the call volume, and then other services start losing EMTs and paramedics as well. And so as this staffing shortage starts happening, we start losing. When Vanderbilt came into Tullahoma, we lost 7 employees pretty much overnight to them.
So, say that again, 7 employees left?
Yeah.
Any of those medics?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, so 7, several, most of which were medics that
I'd
went,
say
At
pretty
least
much
5 of them probably.
went
Yeah.
to
5
Vanderbilt to work
Went
for
to
the Vanderbilt
Vanderbilt's
system.
ambulance service.
Okay.
St. Thomas started an ambulance service, we lost a couple of them. As these hospitals, and I don't mean that in a negative context, but as they needed ambulances and couldn't get them, their answer was to start their own. They came in offering $7 to $10 more an hour than we were. Pretty easy to get employees. So then it got worse and worse, and as you can see by the red there, it really did get desperate. At that point, I was able to negotiate with Budget and Finance to get a 25% pay raise for our medics, and you can see from that point to now, it's getting better. The pay absolutely is an issue. These other counties keep raising their pay. Of course, Vanderbilt and St. Thomas aren't a county budget. They don't have to wait till budget time. If they see they're in a struggle, they can vote tomorrow to give their medics a raise. And that struggles for us because we have to wait till the next budget year. We very seldom do things in between budget years. But that helped tremendously. And we're hiring people, we're sending them to school, trying to basically grow our own. Part of the problem with Coffee County is we are basically halfway between Chattanooga and Nashville. So if you don't live in Coffee County and you live in, let's say, Rutherford County, you're not going to drive to the more rural, lower paying. You're going to drive to Nashville to the higher paying. We're just in a bad geographic location in that anywhere outside our county is closer to the big cities.
And I think a lot of people think that it's just we're losing them to other medic services. We're losing them to hospitals, period, in the form of coming off the rig to go into the ERs and work as medics in the ERs because they can start IVs, they can do. So we're not just competing with other ambulance services
Right.
or Vanderbilt's ambulance service. We're competing with emergency rooms.
And
to,
10
that
years
employ.
ago, that wasn't a thing.
Right.
They work nurses and LPNs.
Because
That's
hospitals
their
don't have
staffing
enough
issues,
staffing with
right.
nurses.
Their issues, staffing issues. They said, let's, I hate to say lower the standard, but let's allow medics to work as medics in a facility. And so, like you say, then all of a sudden we were losing staff to hospitals.
And that's one of the things when we just limit our way of thinking to, well, this is what they're paying in surrounding counties. Or, you know, you also have to look at surrounding private locations like Vanderbilt, St. Thomas, as you said, but you also have to look at what they can make going into the ER,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. So, that, like I said, we are making progress. We're hiring some younger people that are just new in the field, but they're willing to go to school, and that's basically growing our own local people that don't mind and want to work here, and then we'll allow it going to school and hopefully get those up to medic level. It is very hard for us to pull a medic away from an existing job. Nobody likes to change jobs as a general rule. And so it's very hard to draw those medics away if they're happy where they are and they're making a decent dollar. And so that's just a struggle.
So in talking about the financial aspect of it, should we, is that something we want to talk about? Pay, I mean, we're past the budget, you know, we're in a situation of limbo with the authority. I don't know what the, you know, I mean, we know there's a problem and it's going to get worse. And we know that money can fix some of the problem, you know, a big portion of it. I think protocols is something, and I know, do you want to talk to him about protocols and what that means to medics? And
The state publishes protocols every 2 to 3 years at whatever their whim is. And these protocols basically have to be approved by our medical director, who says, okay, if you get on a scene and this patient is having chest pain, you don't have to call the ER and get orders to give aspirin. You can do that under a protocol. You don't have to call and get orders for intubations, for defibrillations, all that stuff we used to have to call and get orders for, even working a code. So protocols say that, all right, if these things exist, these are standard things, And everybody in the country basically does them this way, and so if you do it that way, I, as your medical director, not I, our medical director, will go ahead and sign off on that. So they publish them, we take them and review them and say, okay, we agree, this all looks pretty cut and dry, and it is, as I said, mostly national standard items, and then we get our medical director to sign off on them and put them in place. There's a new set out that has expanded the skills of the advanced EMTs because lack of medics. The state is taking another approach and saying, okay, if we don't have enough medics, can we let our advanced EMTs do more? And so they've expanded their scope of practice. And so we have those currently. I've got 3 of my employees reviewing them, one AMT, one person who just finished medic school, and one who is a medic. And they're going to give me a list of, hey, looks good, or we need to add this or that to meet these standards. And then once they give me that list, then we go to the medical director. Hey, are you okay with this stuff? And then normally I would come to the authority and say, here are the things that are different. Here's what we want to add. And then, of course, y'all could discuss the financial impact of some of those
Opening up the
decisions.
protocols.
And approve that, yes, we agree those should be done. Which is partly what I love about having you on the board. As a physician, you have a very insightful view on those things.
With the, and again, you know, with everything somewhat in limbo with where it's going, and if we even have another future authority meeting, I want to take advantage of the fact that this is televised so that people can understand staffing for medics and how that works. Currently, they're on a what we call a 24/48. And that's standard jargon within medics know 24/48 versus 24/72. So can you explain?
So 24/48, they come in at 8 o'clock in the morning, they work until 8 o'clock the next morning. They work 24 hours. Now, they are allowed to rest during that time in between calls. Don't think that they're up all 24,
Right.
though some days we are. And then they're off for 2 days, the 48. Then they come back on for another 24. So every third day. Excuse me. There is a trend right now of a lot of services going to what's called a 24/72. You work your 24 on, and then you're off for 3 days, and then you come back and work 24. If you're the first person in town to do that, everybody runs to you because they didn't cut their pay and they cut their hours.
Right.
Well,
So
who wouldn't sign up for
my
that
understanding is we're currently under 24/48.
correct.
So it's, you know, and I've heard people say, you know, 24/48 means you work 10 days in a month, roughly is what
Average.
it comes out to. And so you'll hear people say, oh, well, you know, you're a medic, you just work 10 days a month. But I want people to understand, whether it's people here, people in the audience, or people at home, or commissioners voting in the future, so, you know, taking this into consideration. A 24, you know, I mean, that's a 3 8-hour shift. I mean, that's the equivalent of a lot of people who get up every day, go to work 9 to 5, and then go home.
Right, you're working
And
your 3
then
days
they
in
do, so
one.
they do a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they do straight. And then they go home and rest 2 days, do it again. So a 24/48, if you do the math, working a 24/48 is 10 shifts a month, with each shift being the equivalent of 3 days work for someone who works a 9 to 5, which means they're working 30 days a month times a year's worth. That's literally 360 days a year. So, you know, and I want our commissioners to realize that, because it's tough decisions, I know, when whether you're the ambulance authority and, you know, in budget and finance, you know, I would not want to be on budget and finance. That's a tough decision, because you have to decide who needs it more. And I will tell you, I want you guys to consider, and ladies to consider, when you're on budget and finance or whatever it is, and you're determining where we're going in the future with pay raises and things. These aren't people who work 10 shifts a month. You know, these medics and EMTs and whatnot. They're not working 10 shifts a month. They're working 30. You know, they're working 30 8-hour shifts
38
a
hour
month.
days, basically.
30. They're working 360 days a year. Is our EMS system open on Christmas?
Absolutely,
Is it open on New Year's?
absolutely.
Is it open, when
Pick it.
COVID strikes? Yeah. So the point is, when it's time to vote and you're weighing, well, we got the money, but we got to do this and we got to do that. And again, it's tough decisions that have to be made, and that's why you guys got elected to make those decisions. You're making decisions on someone who really works. When you say, we asked for an $8 raise, we got $4, and hey, we're appreciative of that. There were tough decisions Budget and Finance had to make, but we see the impact that those raises make on staffing, and I just want people to be aware. I want it somewhere to be said publicly that this isn't somebody that works 10 shifts a month. This is someone that's working the equivalent of 30 shifts a month, 360 days a year. So I just want to go on record, and I think a lot of medics would appreciate that, because it's not, I don't know if I've ever heard it verbalized in a public setting before. I haven't. It may have been said elsewhere, but that these are, and it's not like you're going to work and you're sitting back, and you're doing some of the most tragic, horrible things. You're dealing with people going through the worst day of their life in some instances. So those things need to be considered strongly when Budget and Finance is making those tough financial decisions. So.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Director Bonner?
It's very thorough. Good job.
You hit your button again.
I know. If not, we'll move on to the next one. Let me get this button first. Okay, if there's no questions, we'll move on to unfinished business. On A, review the county personnel manual and the Coffee County EMS policies. I don't know, back in April, I asked for this, and the reason I asked for this is to find if there's any contradiction between our manual and the EMS policies, or if there's any gray area we need to clean up, or anything we need to clean up in our EMS policy, so it don't cause confusion with the Coffee County manual. So y'all had a chance to look at them. Got any? I ask this every month. So have you found anything or any gray areas?
I have not.
Okay.
I think we did that with Commissioner Kelly, Mark Kelly as well, and there weren't any. A lot of the problems
Right.
dealt with overtime and things, and a lot of those were ironed out back then, so
That's
that
about
took care of the bulk
Third
of it.
time we've done this. The third time since I've been on the commission that we've tried to do this. Okay. All right. If no questions. If there's no answers, we'll move on. All right. Number B. Status of paying for schools. I think. Oh, go ahead.
So the ambulance, I approached the ambulance authority to say, one of the things other departments do is they pay their employees school fees when they go to school. And I believe that would help us draw and retain employees. And then we expanded it from just paramedic school to AMT school, and then we expanded it to basic EMT school. And it was determined that it had to go through other people other than just the authority. So it went to personnel and what's that?
Policy and procedure.
Policy, there we go. And they approved it. It went to Budget and Finance, and they approved it. We'd already had the money kind of set aside in our budget. Then it's supposed to go to legislative. I believe it has gone to legislative. I do not know if it's come out of legislative. And then it goes before the full commission for a vote. And so that really is my question, is where is it? It's out of my jurisdiction now. I just don't know whose jurisdiction it's currently in.
Saw the chairman of the legislative.
And we had to make some emergency.
We got the chairman of the legislative committee out here.
We got chairman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner Morris?
He went off, I think he's got his mail up.
I thought
thought he said he wasn't on it.
Okay. Well, yeah, since we've been trying to get this passed, we've had to make some emergency moves there to, let people go to school. You might want to dwell on that and see where it's at and what you said you had in
I
mind.
think it's a done deal. We can't have enough training, and I totally support encouraging everybody to take all the training they can, and you're right, it's a great retention tool, and this county's blessed enough to be able to afford it, I think we should. And I have no, there shouldn't be anything really holding it up.
I wouldn't think so.
I need to
It's just
call
gotta go
for
through the proper committees to get to the full commission, so.
And I think that we built in a clawback provision, so that, they had to stay with us a certain amount of time in order to get the full 100% of the benefit of the reimbursement for the school. And I don't think that's out of the norm.
No.
That helps us keep people, at least for the 2 years that we've trained them and
Yeah.
sent them to school and paid for them.
As I understand it, full commission meets again in November.
We may have a special meeting before then.
Okay.
And if we do, we'll.
And so obviously I'd love to see that on the agenda. I don't, so far, nobody's really been against it. It's just, we've got to get it through the procedural, steps.
And Mike, there was a issue with there's a certain amount they can only pay. Mariana brought up something to do with, since it's a college, that there's something that
There
we
was
can
a-
only pay a certain amount.
I do remember her saying that, and the way
during a
we,
physical timeframe.
the workaround was a calendar year because of tuition.
Right.
We had a
Paramedic school
workaround.
actually
Schools.
breaks over a
Right.
calendar year.
We
so
were, right.
we felt like it would work out, but it
That
was
it would work because
an
of how
oddity.
some of the schools laid out, that they would break over into the next calendar.
Right.
Is that it on that item?
That's all I had.
Okay. C, and before I read this or start this, let's remember that if we get into a discussion, finish let the person finish before you butt in, okay? Don't be butting in or talking over anybody, as we did earlier, okay? All right, discuss the ambulance authority.
I think we got a lot of that.
We got a lot of that out a
beginning.
while ago. I mean, we got a lot of that on there a while ago.
Bring something up. I'd like to say I'm glad everybody's here to watch this. I'm glad we've got the cameras up now, because this will keep a lot of the unknowns from happening in the future. This has been a task, getting the cameras in the right way, getting everything in and everything put together, so I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody's hard work. This is not a fun job necessarily all the time. It can be very rewarding, but it can also be, public service can be the most frustrating thing you can possibly participate in. And so I get that on both sides. Emotions can run high, and that's just a part of the beast. And we do all need to try to control that every time we can, myself included. But I'm proud of each and every one of you. I'm proud of each and every one of you that run these ambulances, and that are fire chiefs, and our firemen. You guys do a fantastic job. I don't believe there's none of these machinations that you're seeing up here has anything to do with your performance whatsoever. It's just it's just the ugly part of making sausage politically in the public eye, and that's what our country does. And like I said, it can be the most frustrating thing, it can also be the most rewarding thing. And so I'll say that, and then hope you guys come to a decision.
So who wants to start?
You made the motion. I haven't heard any, I didn't hear the discussion, and so I guess
So-
that's,
All right, so it came out of a discussion that with things coming down the pipe, the mega site and things of that nature,
came out of a discussion with,
when it was on the agenda from last meeting. Okay, so,
so y'all were having a discussion about the mega site, and then you
No.
amended the agenda.
no, sir.
No,
Okay.
the agenda was amended.
Let him try to explain, and then you can
Yeah,
add it.
say I'm not the most articulate, but I'll try to get it out.
Okay.
So, when I put it on the agenda, it was because of things that were coming down the pipe with the mega site coming into town and things like that. So, I brought it up about the mega site coming to town, that we may have to start expanding services. Ambulance, like the mayor said, we may be looking at full-time fire. It would simply be easier if that happened if we were a committee versus an authority, because as of right now, we focus strictly on EMS. In a nutshell, then that way later on, if we could combine resources And since fire and EMS work so closely together, that way we could actually bring some resources to the table and actually be attractive in hiring, multiple, qualified people, such as people who are fire and EMS qualified. In a nutshell, that's all it was, in as far as the discussion and bringing that in. That's pretty much all it ends up being. So there's not really any other conspiracy behind this than that right there alone.
And let me put it, I will say that the November meeting that we had, yeah, the mega site was out there, but the state hadn't purchased it yet, so really didn't know if that was even gonna go. And I think that when the state purchased that mega site, then we know something's coming. We just don't know what and don't know how big or whatever. Is that correct?
It's gonna be,
It has not been purchased yet,
Yes.
correct?
it's not been purchased yet, the money's been approved in the budget, and a closing date has been set. I don't know the date yet, because the State Building Commission has not yet identified that date with us,
But
but
it-
I'm predicting November.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
already been voted on, passed,
Pretty
bought,
much it in a nutshell.
just hadn't get the money yet.
I mean, I certainly understand the merits of what you're talking about. I guess what I don't understand is why it just feels extremely rushed. And
Well, I certainly didn't mean for it to be rushed, okay? So, if it looked rushed, I apologize. I made the motion, I gotta stand with it, but it didn't necessarily mean anything with y'all being absent or anything. I would not do that. It was, like I said, I have to own it because I did it, but wasn't nothing on y'all or anybody that works there at all.
Okay. And let me clarify one thing about why the meeting got postponed. The meeting would have took place if it was just me that had the COVID, okay? But I was at a 911 board meeting with Commissioner Watkins, Commissioner DeFord, and one of our reporters over there. And in that meeting,
Night before.
the night before, and in that meeting, I exposed, 2 and 3 people. And probably the rest of them that were in there. So I had to call, and when I got home, I tested positive for COVID. So, I've already got 2 coming tomorrow, and I've already been affected. So that's the reason it got postponed. It wasn't just because of me. If it was just me out, y'all could have carried on. But I didn't want to put everybody else at risk, knowing that I exposed everybody in that building. And those 2, and the reporter was there. So it wouldn't, like I say, that was the timeline or the things that happened, and just, one of those things that, didn't want to expose everybody. So, anybody else got anything to say?
Well, I don't discount any of your arguments. I think that you can make some good arguments that there are definitely some pros for making this committee. There are some cons too. I don't know that I bring a whole lot to the committee, but or the authority, but I certainly think Jay does. You're losing a huge resource with his medical knowledge base that really can't be filled by anybody else that's on the commission right now.
And I would agree.
We're sort of making some.
And if we're not ready to do this yet, I'm fine.
Well, I mean, it's been done. I mean, the
Well,
vote's been
no,
done,
there's-
so I don't know, unless you're
there-
gonna rescind your motion
Well-
and we have another vote on it, I think that ship has sailed.
Well, no, I think there's a motion to reconsider that can be made. Am I not right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. But we can discuss this, but as soon as a motion's
that
made to
motion's made-
reconsider.
Do you want me to
Yeah, explain that.
Go
explain
ahead.
it very quick? A motion to reconsider past actions has to be brought forward by one of the people on the prevailing side. So in this case, he's the chairman, so it would not be the chairman that would bring forward the motion.
Right.
It'd be Commissioner Watkins or Commissioner DeFord. Once the initial motion is made, anybody can second it, whether they were there or not, or anything else. Once that's done, then you vote. That's
Yeah, no discussion, you
No
just
discussion,
vote.
nothing, and if you rescind that previous motion, you're right back where you were at 4:45 that afternoon, no questions asked. Now, I will say that in the future, if you wanna plan something and do something, this commission's got enough brain power on it to work with you and others to make sure that your voice is not silenced if it's a standing committee. We can do whatever we want, especially with 2/3 majority. Okay, so we can have ad hoc members, we can have citizen members, We can do anything we want, so we don't have to take that off the table in the future, if that's ever a concern. I'm not saying that for a vote tonight, I'm just saying that we can do whatever we want when the time comes. Yes.
Just so I understand, so a standing committee does not have to be all county commissioners?
That would have to be, but you could have ad hoc citizen committee
Oh.
members, you could have.
So the 5 members would be, but you can
they'd be
add,
voters.
That'd be the voters, but you could have ad hoc
Okay.
non-voters.
You could have absolutely advisors and anything of that nature.
Okay, sorry, I just
I mean, I would call them consultants.
clarify there.
Consultants,
hoc,
but
yeah,
whatever.
consultants.
But getting back to the original thing on the agenda, once again, one of the people from the prevailing side of the motion would have to make the motion to reconsider past actions, and I'll be the chairman. Anybody can second it, but one of the two people that made the initial vote has to make the initial motion.
Now, let me ask a question that was brought up during that meeting that you may have found out more about since then.
Sure.
That we are only a committee by name, that there never has been any paperwork found over the years where we are officially an ambulance authority. I'm sorry, I said committee, but I
If
meant
you
an
look at the
authority.
state's website, that's correct. We're not listed as an authority.
So,
Only Hawkins,
what
Granger,
does that
and
mean?
Lauderdale County are.
Legally, what does that mean?
I don't know what that means, I don't know. We have a resolution creating authority in my office, and I don't have a resolution rescinding it. So, I would say there is an authority of some kind. It's probably just been continued in perpetuity, and it just, for whatever reason, it's not on the state website.
could the rules in 1972 have been different than they are now
Sure.
on what it takes to be? Because in 72 was when the bulk of the counties in Tennessee said, all right, let's get in the ambulance business.
Well, the civil
So,
service got out of it too.
right,
Right.
and so I feel like that many counties starting one at the same time, somebody probably was making sure they were doing it correctly. I don't know that as a fact, obviously.
I don't know, but I have a copy of the original resolution, if anybody wants, I'd be glad to make you a copy of it. It's dated, I think, 72, and it's,
But if it is not with the state, I'm using terms I'm not good at, then it means we don't have to go to them to undo it, right?
No, we don't have to do that.
True.
That's
Because
true.
They didn't know we did it. theoretically. Okay,
technically true.
so the steps to undo it, we've already proven, this committee, legislative, full commission, right? Okay.
Yes.
I'm
And I will say,
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay, I just
oh,
want
you still
to
want, you
understand.
still, you good?
I'm good with that
Okay.
question.
Well, I still want to say that November meeting, you know, when we discussed that and we, you know, decided not to move on it, we did say, and I do remember this, that anytime we want to bring it up, we could bring it up, whether it be next month, 6 months, or last month, we could bring it up. That's how we ended on that, said, well, you know, we don't want to move on it right now, but anytime in the future we want to bring it up, any one of us can bring it up. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Being
Yeah.
said?
I mean,
Okay.
we never took it off the table.
Never
We had a
took it off the
discussion
table.
and just no motion was made to proceed.
Right.
Yep, I agree.
Never voted on it, never took it off the table, so it could be brought up.
Well, I guess I'm a conservative in my thought processes. And from my conservative thinking cap, I don't like making changes because I don't always know what the unintended consequences will be. And I mean that unintended, like I don't know, I don't know that there are any ulterior motives. I did reference that, and I said, I worry about ulterior motives. And I do worry that there could be, because I didn't know what was going on. So that doesn't mean that I know that you're trying to do something, or you're trying to do, or that you're trying to do something. I don't know. I just worried about the way it went down. And so I do apologize if that was too harsh. But it was questions that I really wanted to ask, and I thought other people needed to ask those questions. There are commissioners out there that do need, I mean, it's not my job really to track down ulterior motives, but there are commissioners out there, it is their job to understand exactly what they're getting.
Correct.
And so, you know, I go back to that same conservative viewpoint is if this thing has worked well since 1972, we don't know, I mean, the mega site is not officially, it's probably gonna happen. I mean, I can't imagine it not, but it could fall through until the check clears, it ain't done. And so, you know, until we see some other things happen, even if the sale goes through, which I anticipate it doing, it may sit there for 30 years before somebody comes in there. Now, I don't anticipate that happening either. I mean, I think that it's probably gonna, I mean, it would have
We
happened.
get about 5 visitors a week.
It would, Ford would have been there, I think, if the state had owned it, and I think Hyundai would have been there if the state had owned it. There's people that wanna be there, and I think it's probably gonna happen. But still, I don't know why why put our cart before the horse unless there are some other issues. So if
Well, it was
the
just-
main thing is the mega site, yeah, I'm sorry. The main thing is the mega site, I think we've got plenty of time before to make decisions and have discussions with commissioners, have discussions with the director, have discussions with employees, and see how they view this change. And that didn't happen, and nobody could even know to come in and have a discussion about it because it wasn't on an agenda. You know, if you had wanted to add this thing to an agenda the week prior, I wouldn't have had an issue with it. I'm all for having a vote and having a discussion. It just irked me the way that it went down. I'll just be honest. It seemed extremely disrespectful to me and Jay that this went down.
One,
And I
no
didn't call you.
disrespect intended,
Well,
and by certainly not.
Well, I appreciate that.
And, again, like I said, I just hate being behind the 8 ball.
Well, I do
I'm
too.
one
and
of those that hate having to play catch-up. And so I certainly, like I said, want to make sure we're ahead of the game instead of behind it.
Well, there's a balance between.
And I understand that.
Yeah,
So-
proactive and knee-jerk.
Sure.
And I don't wanna do a knee-jerk reaction that changes something that has been in place for
Sure.
50 years and done a good job, unless you feel like that we are not adequately doing our job.
No,
And so if that's the
no.
case, we need to have a discussion about
No,
that.
not necessarily, no, sir. Like I said, I just simply thought that down the road, it would be easier to do some other services under a public safety committee rather than just simply having a one-hat horse as an ambulance authority.
Sure.
That's it.
And that's another thing that you know,
So-
you call it a one-hat horse, and I understand what you're saying, but I also appreciate some checks and balances and divisions of government. And so having, and you made a statement in that interview with Tiffany on Thunder, and you talked about how, as it stands as an authority, it's insulated from the mayor's office. And then by dissolving the authority, it gives you the ultimate power to hire and fire. And this is not directed at you, this is directed at the office of mayor, in my next words, but that's a little scary to me. You know,
But
it's
I
a
made
little.
a factual statement.
Wait, and I'm not saying that it's not factual. It is factual. It is extremely factual, and that's what's a little scary to me is that we went from something. At some point, this commission, not this standing commission, but the 1972 commission said, "Hey, we need this to be separate from the county commission." And part of that I feel like is because mayors and commissioners come and go, and so if every time that you change a regime, then you also get a director change. That's huge upheaval to a system that does not need upheaval. In general, I'm not saying that's not directed towards you. You may need upheaval. I'm not saying that, but just as a general thought process, we don't need a lot of. We don't need a new mayor putting his man in every 4 to 8 years or
Understand
however
that.
long, you
I
know.
understand that.
And so,
Questions were asked to me, and I'm giving factual answers.
yeah, I know, and I'm not.
Bottom line.
I'm not. Those were facts, but those are the facts that we need to think about. Like, because you were correct in those facts, is that what the county needs? Is that what the county wants? Is that what the commissioners want? Do they want an insulation, a layer of insulation between the ambulance authority and the mayor's office, or do they want you to have that ultimate power to hire and fire? And that's what the commission really needs to decide.
The thing that needs to be, you can't have it both ways.
No,
Either
you can't.
Pick and choose your good days and your bad days. It's all one or the other, too. So, I can't help, some folks that might ask me to help them if they wanted to help, because you guys gotta do it. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Believe me, I've got 400 employees.
Sure.
We've got enough to do.
Well, and certainly, if we decide to stand authority, I would love for you to have as much input as you would. I mean, we would want you there. I would love to have
Thank you.
you
We would not
there
want
every
to gut
every
the
week.
experience that we have. Nobody wants to hit the reset button and reinvent the wheel, at all. And so, I think we've had a good conversation tonight, and, I'm glad we've had it.
And I will say that, you know, I think the vote last month was done as a proactive move, not a reactive move. Try not to be reactive, you know, try not to let anything, happen that we had to make a knee-jerk move. And also, I don't know how many went, in 72, I don't know how many went to, ambulance authority or standing committee. But I do know if it was, I mean, it's probably a good thing back then, but over time, you know, things change. And there's 91 counties that have standing committees now overseeing the ambulance service. So, you know, if the ambulance authority, a true authority, which technically we're by name, if it was such a good thing, I believe there would have been 91 counties with an ambulance authority.
I'll say our
There'd been more
county's-
than that.
I'm sorry. I'll say our county's a little bit unique in the fact that we have an EMS service. One, we have three major municipalities. We have the county, city of Manchester, city of Tullahoma. But our county EMS services all those. And, you know, there's probably not a single county out there in Tennessee, maybe you know better than I do, but I bet there's not another single county in Tennessee where the county ambulance service services all three municipalities. And so, yeah, I mean, we may
There'd
be,
be at least 3
okay,
other counties.
right, so we may be unique in the fact that we have an authority, but we're unique in the way that our government structure is set up inside the county. So, you know, maybe there's some pros and cons, I don't know, I hadn't really thought about that, but
I think the way it's looking now, it looks like, you know, our staffing, we've got potential. You know, we saw with the recent pay raise, increased staffing, you know, compared to what it was. It's not perfect by any means, so there's room for improvement. And, you know, as we talked about before, as the commissioners and budget finance makes decisions moving forward, and with the next time it comes up for them for a raise, you know, whenever that is, I don't even know, you know, I'm not in politics in terms of, you know all the rules and how things work, but, you know, I don't know if that's something that can be considered midway through
Yes, sir, it
a season.
We've done it before, and in the year I've been here, we've made mid-year corrections.
So I don't know anybody here who wouldn't want to see that happen in order to attract some of these medics that we need. And honestly, it's gonna be a bidding war. It is. It's a bidding war with the hospitals. It's a bidding war, and it's who's gonna run out of money first, you know? And you know, I know every time there's people want great services showing up, but when it's time to raise property tax or consider a wheel tax or whatever it is to pay for it, you know, there's another, you know, it's always the hot seat for those people, be it the mayor or the commissioners having to make those decisions. So I don't envy those. I know, you know, I'm not one to say, well, we've done it since 1972, and Dr. Kill and I've had this discussion, so we need to keep it that way. Not at all. I mean, I'm not just because, but at the same time, I'm not, well, all the other guys are doing it this way, we need to do it that way too, you know. I'm a facts guy, you know, tell me why we should change, why not, why we should stay the same, you know. I think arguments could be made. And unless, you know, Commissioner Watkins or D. Ford rescinds that motion, then it's in the hands of the commissioners this next meeting to decide, you know.
let me ask
what
you
they're gonna
this,
do.
if this motion is not rescinded and we don't reconsider it, and it goes back to the commission,
It would have to be, my understanding is it'd be a fresh resolution, have to go back through legislative, and then it would be put back on the calendar again as another separate item again, because it's been defeated. So it would have to, I've got the,
all right, explain that to me again, I'm sorry, that's pretty complicated.
The same process would have to happen that happened before.
well, it was removed. It would still have to be reintroduced.
Right,
Put on an agenda and go through the same process.
Right.
Proper notice, week's notice, whatever.
It
Still,
a new motion would have to be made to dissolve
No.
A new agenda item at the full
at the
commission.
full commission, okay.
Right.
And then it would be up to the commission to vote it in or vote it down. I mean, it's up for a vote.
So what happens right now then?
I thought it
We
was just tabled till next month's commission meeting, or the next meeting to vote on dissolution.
we didn't table it to the next one.
Yeah, was removed from the agenda.
It's
Okay.
removed from
before
the,
the meeting
yeah, when
even
Tim made the motion,
Yeah,
it was
it wasn't
removed
even
from the
assigned
agenda.
to the next meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't even,
So right now, we just meet next month, just like normal. We continue to be a ambulance authority
Until something
Yeah.
happens.
until something happens.
There's no, yeah, we don't meet till November unless,
Well, but then, yeah, the full
but
commission.
no, I think Dr. Keel's talking
We
about.
meet in October.
What do we do?
we meet in October, we'll still meet in October.
Yeah, you'd still meet in October, because until the commission created another standing committee and dissolved the authority, you would still continue to operate as an authority.
Until, yes, said day
If it's in
happens.
perpetuity, or if you guys decide tonight to,
Well, then there's no real reason to rescind their motion. I mean, right now, it's an authority until the commission says otherwise. But I mean, y'all are rescinded if you want to. If you want to leave it like it is, you know, that's, I guess we'll rock and roll.
Well, I will say if it is rescinded, it's been an honor serving on the authority. You know, Tim, you were on, the first time I spoke before the authority, I wasn't on the authority. I spoke I was chief of staff of the newly combined hospitals. When at Medical Center and United Regional, I was appointed chief of staff, and I came going, we need help. You know, we need ambulances for transport, and so I was on the other side of it. You know, so I've seen it from the side of a physician needing help with transports, and then having to step onto this side in this chair and you know, understand the budgets and the challenges. You know, has been. It's been an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve with you guys. And you know, if it continues, I'll keep doing my best until asked not to do it anymore. So, but thank you all for the opportunity to serve.
I'd echo those same sentiments. It's been such an eye-opening, like, not, you know, coming out of a civilian or whatever you want to call it, just a regular citizen to come onto an authority like this that I didn't even know existed before I became a commissioner. There's no fame and glory because nobody knows what we're doing. I mean, there are very few people out there that even know that there is an ambulance authority in existence. It's pretty daggum important work. I'm real proud of what we've done while we've been on here, and if it ceases to exist in its current form, then it'll still be a good memory for me.
Okay. Any more discussion? Any more?
I'd just like to make a few more pros and cons, I guess. Like you said about the mayor, that he can hire and fire. That's true, and I see both sides of that. The same goes for the authority. We don't know if we're gonna be on here next time. 3 votes can get rid of the director. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, I mean, I really feel like that kinda works both ways. I mean, before our ambulance authority, Tim knows, before we
yeah.
were ever on it, there was
Yeah.
a lot of issues with the ambulance authority. I mean, we've worked great together. I have no problems with anybody on this ambulance authority. Everybody brings something great to the table. My biggest issue, and I've had to step back because of so many emotions have ran high, misunderstandings between all of us. We're running on bare bones in this county, and it really bothers me, and I'm putting the mega site to the side right now. I don't know, I'm pretty sure y'all were at the meeting. I asked about a bad call, 2 bad calls we had where a BLS truck showed up on both calls first. It's not Michael's fault, it's not Paul's fault, it's not, I don't know the solution. There has to be a solution to get more paramedics. We've been short 8 paramedics for a year, 2 years. But that particular call keeps standing out in my head. That a BLS, what can a BLS truck do? Throw you in the back of the ambulance and get you to the hospital.
They can do CPR and things like that, but yeah.
That's about it.
They can, yeah, it's not as
And-
much as a medic for sure.
The person that they showed up on the second call, I mean, an ALS truck did wind up showing up on both calls. The first one, the person was deceased, but what if they hadn't have been deceased? Is that good enough for Coffee County? I mean, to me, that's not good enough if we don't have a paramedic on each truck, an ALS truck. I don't feel like that's good enough for our citizens to be put in that position. You know, that could cost any of us, any of our families, any of these citizens their lives.
I don't know that, and I agree with you 100%, but I don't know that necessarily changing from an authority to a committee
Yeah, and
makes
I'm
that
not-
difference.
I'm not saying it does, I just
Yeah.
feel like there's gotta be a solution to this problem, whether it be putting this under the mayor's office where it goes, the employees go through HR. If Michael has a problem, he goes through HR. I don't know the answer to that question, but there has to be a solution somewhere.
You still go through HR if you have problems, correct?
No.
Currently, it's kind of a mixed batch because there are certain things that fall under HR and there are certain things that fall under this committee. So kind of depends on what the problem is as to, usually I end up going to both. Let me just say it that way. I go with HR, hey, what do you say about this? And then I either bring it to y'all and say, all right, this is the issue, you know. So it's kind of a mixed, there are those four things that say we must comply with the rest of the county employees. And then there are things that we can have independent rules on that wouldn't apply to the rest of the county employees. But it's a little line there that you kind of bounce back and forth over depending on whose problem and what the issue was.
Sure.
And
And
this is probably not,
Oh, go ahead.
this is probably not popular opinion. We have, the part I'm fixing to say after this, but we have some great employees right now that I hope we can retain. I hope we can increase the pay more next budget. They deserve more. I don't know how they do it. They're having to work overtime. I don't know how they do it. But I just don't feel like we can continue the way we are working. Tullahoma, I don't know how they would make it without Tullahoma Fire Department first responding on each call. I mean, and a lot of employees that have complained to me, they don't wanna come in front of this board. They don't wanna come in front of the public to air their, whether it's, and I'm half and half this is what I was gonna say is probably unpopular opinion, but you know, Michael, a lot of them there's disgruntled employees, there's employees that, there's truth and not truth, I don't know. But I'm just saying a lot of them that do come to me and complain, so you're gonna have, I can't do anything about it unless you come forward. You're gonna have to talk to somebody besides me. Call the other board members too, not just me. But they don't wanna come in front of a public group to air their problem. And I can't say that I blame them.
And keeping on with what you're saying, I think that's a gray area, that one of the gray areas we had, because you said it's a mixed bag, and it is. And I think, to me, the standing committee means that we're out of that business.
Right,
If they got a
that's the
complaint or a
point I'm trying to
problem or
reach.
hard fire, whatever, it goes before HR to make sure that to make sure that Michael's doing things on the up and up, and make sure, you know.
And I think that would help you too, Michael. I mean,
Yeah,
in
I think it will help the employee in the long run, because it erases that gray area that they have. Do I go to HR, do I come to the board, or do I have to come to both? Now they won't have that, you know, if we go forward, they won't have that decision. You know, they can just say, well, if I got a problem, I can go to HR, or if Michael's got a problem with an employee that he wants to discipline, you can go to HR and make sure that, you know, you're doing things on the up and up. But it's one person making a decision instead of five of us. And my other thing, you know, since we are not a private act authority, kind of concerns me on the liability on some of the decisions we may make in the future. You know, if we stay that way, you know what I'm saying? You know, you can make a decision, somebody can come back and, you know, have litigation on you and on this board, and, you know, I mean, that'd be the first thing I would attack. You know, are you a legitimate board? You know, so, that's one of the things I've
Has
been
that
wrestling
ever
with for a long
happened,
time.
as far as you know, in the past?
Never happened, but, you know, it can. I mean, it can happen.
The ambulance authority has been sued in the not for that reason, but they have been sued
Oh,
in
yeah,
the past.
I'm sure over the past.
Not our
months.
board,
No.
not any.
But we do have liability coverage and protection. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we got coverage, but, you know,
First,
Yeah.
last November or so, that we are.
did you want something?
Well, I think you guys identified just a lot of the reason why there is friction here is because a lot of it's coming from externally, from other individuals that don't know how to handle the problems that they have. And they don't wanna go in front of 5 people or 6 people. Maybe there's a way, and we can get, you can use Dead North as much as you need to, or, you know, whatever legal service you choose. But, you know, make yourself a list of questions, make sure about the liability. Can you create a subcommittee of 2 people? That's all it takes for a quorum in Robert's Rules of Order is 2 people, and have that an HR committee.
Mr. Mayor, we're dealing with that, again, we're dealing with this issue by analogy right now. It's another county department,
Right.
but they have their own policy of insurance. We have ours, because if we're gonna be sued, we're all gonna be sued together. And there's probably gonna be more contention about which policy pays the most. You know, we fall under the Government Import Liability Act, but right now, I'm in the middle of 2 companies. And again, we've got a department and we've got the county, and we're dealing about who's gonna pay what. So we are dealing with that. So I would say that. I'm sorry to add that, but yes, we are dealing with that. I'm not saying that it definitely isn't ambulance for. But I will say it is that's pending right now. So.
Right. Okay.
The point is, we can all put your heads together and maybe come up with a way to solve these problems if you choose to remain together as an authority. You know, it's just gonna be as creative as you need to be, but there are some frustrations in there. I can't help anybody, and when I said on the radio, that there's insulation, there is by design. There's an authority there, so there can't be upheaval. And that's fine too, if we wanna go that way. But if we need something done quickly, there's a major problem, I can't touch that either. And so, use Ed all you want to, come up with, you know, talk to, Heather and HR, talk to some other HR professionals, find out what they would recommend, how you would handle. I mean, can you have one person that could hear these confidentially, and bring them to the board as I don't know. It's hard to be anonymous when you only have 33 employees. But I will provide any services that I can from my office to help you, regardless of whichever decision you make.
It's much appreciated.
Glad to do it.
Anything else? I mean, I'd like to say something too. I should have said this a long time. We never in our discussions, and I think any time in our discussions, or even last month, when we were talking about doing this last month, and I will say this because of the fire department, we didn't have any intentions on, you know, in my opinion, the volunteer fire department's there. It won't be touched, it can't be touched. So there was no intentions to, I don't know. And I know a bunch of them are riled up because they think we're gonna do away with the committee and do, you know, whatever. I think the only thing that was said, that if we make a full-time fire department, they would be under that safety committee. Isn't that correct?
I believe so.
Just the county paid fire.
And also
Paid fire.
that, you know,
Volunteers are separate.
absolutely, that's a separate
They're
private
nonprofit.
corporation.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanna get that out there.
They're all each independent.
They're all each
501c3s.
independently, and I understand that. So,
That's why we want our fire chiefs to pick who's gonna be our fire department.
right,
I mean, y'all know who's qualified, y'all know who's paid their dues, y'all know who can get those positions first, and that's why I charged them with that 6 months ago.
right. But also, you know, we don't, and I think that was what you brought that up in that meeting, but I think the only thing you said, that if we do pass this and later on, we start trying to streamline committees, nothing was said about HWR. It was said that the volunteer fire departments that were in HR, in HWR, might wanna come over to where the safety committee is at. And that was the only thing that's said about the fire department, but you know, if you don't have all the facts, you kinda, your mind gets to racing. And I know, being a firefighter, I know how it races. And, but that's the only thing that I can know that we've ever even mentioned. And that's so, you know, that's I think that's 2 or 3 years down the road. I think the full-time fire department's even further down, I mean, I think all this is further down the road. We're just trying to take the preliminary steps.
I've seen what's, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I've seen what's happened in 5 other communities that have received one of these sites. And it's the same playbook over and over. It's 15,000 new people in a decade. It's need for 4 more ambulance services or 2 more. It's need for 2 more schools. It's a need for full-time fire department, whatever. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's a radical change from a sleepy county that's, you know, got 100-century farms to being one that has 96 that's got a major industry. Huge industry.
And again, that's all it was. Hearing what the mayor just said that happens in these others, I didn't want us behind the 8 ball. That's simply all it was. So,
Are we through with this item? Anybody else want to comment? Okay, if we're done, we'll move on to the next item. New business, Manchester Station remodel, relocation of Manchester Cruise.
I don't think we have to totally redo this, that just helps me, so y'all see what I'm
Right,
saying.
you're just talking, yeah.
So, maintenance gentleman Rick believes the money has been approved, everybody seems to agree, but in order to do that, he's gotta move the people out of the Manchester Station, and so we've got a place to relocate them to. What we would like to do is move one of those crews to the new Union Station, and one of those crews to the education room that's in the old jail annex, which is 3 blocks from where we currently are.
Right.
I don't know that that needs a motion or anything, as long as the board agrees that seems to be the right thing to do.
Y'all have a better place, speak up. If we don't, that's the place that we gotta go. You talked, I guess Alan showed you all that. I mean, he's over in that bit, right?
He's in this building, and this is that.
this is the one that used to be the workhouse.
Oh, okay, I know where
It's
you're
in
talking
that
about.
building.
Yeah,
It's at the end.
so, okay. And as long as you make it work, it's not gonna be for that, well, long period of time, it shouldn't be. So we'll go from there. Is everybody good with that? Move on? Okay. Service contract for power loads, power cots, and cardiac monitors.
So Stryker bought out Physio that used to produce the LifePak 15s. So now our cardiac monitors, our power loads, and our power cots are all under one vendor.
Right.
And so they produce a maintenance contract that covers all of their products. But that product is $29,109.60 a year. So
What does that cover?
it covers
I
all the
mean, what
cardiac
does
monitors.
What does it do?
So any maintenance, any travel, and I'll tell you right here, the next thing, it covers batteries, 2 batteries per cardiac monitor per year. So Paul and I just roughly figured out the number of batteries we have and what they basically are costing. That's about $10,000 worth of batteries, if we took full advantage of that every year.
Sure.
The PM, the preventive maintenance on the LifePak 15s will run us about $3,000, and that should be done every year. It was not done last year. Just in July and August of this budget year, we have spent $7,000 on cot maintenance and power load maintenance. A lot of moving parts. For that power load to lift 700 or really 800 pounds with 2 little arms is I always think it's an engineering marvel, but of course it's a strain on it too. And so obviously if we keep spending that much, we'll spend $42,000 this year. I don't think we will, but just, you all you gotta go by is what you're doing. Last year, we spent $10,949 on equipment maintenance. Couple of other piddly things, but most of that is in those same three categories, because those are our big equipment pieces. The Lucas device, the CPR devices, are not in this because they're still under warranty because they're new. So next year, the contract price would go up because we would have to start including those Lucas devices as well.
And they have the warranty on the Lucas device, the same company.
Yes, yeah, also produced by Stryker. And we don't have $30,000 in our equipment maintenance budget to do this contract. So we're kind of in a situation of either trying to procure 30 grand to buy this maintenance contract or roll the dice and hope that we don't spend more than 10,000 again this year, and then try to put it in next year's budget if we feel like that's the right answer. It's basically an insurance policy, just like all the others that we have.
So, and again, this is my ignorance speaking. I know we've unfortunately saved money because we don't have the staff,
Payroll.
our payroll, we haven't spent our budget in payroll because we're not fully staffed. I don't know the legalities of being able to procure.
So that.
Mariana has always told me you cannot move money out of payroll.
Well,
Well, that's true or not? That's what she's told me.
Well,
Not
maybe
entirely.
not necessarily, yeah.
that's not necessarily true.
Well,
So you can maneuver, and I'm gonna use the numbering system because they're line item numbers. So the 100s is typically payroll. 200s is benefits, 300s down to I think 700s, and if Mariana's watching, she'll correct me, but from I think 300 to 700s are like purchasing items. Any of those you can move around internally by just wanting to. If you wanna move some of the payroll over into like a 700 line item, it requires a budget amendment. But that's something they can do.
School does it all the time.
Who, Budget and Finance do that?
Well, we have to recommend it, and then Budget and Finance does it and asks her to do it, and then it presents before the full commission.
So
And
assuming all
if
that's
I'm wrong,
true,
Mariana, please forgive me.
then the
But
money
I think I
would-
got that right.
So the money's there if we were to do
Is that
that.
right?
Possibly, yeah. And let me ask you, the issues you have with the devices that you said had problems with or had to replace, would they have been covered under this contract?
I believe so, Paul, yeah, I believe,
The
absolutely.
previous problems you had?
The
would be
ones that
covered?
we've spent money on this year so
Yes,
far
would
would have been covered
in this
under
contract.
correct.
a service contract.
Okay.
And I know Budget and Finance would need to look at it because that would be a reoccurring expense, correct? Just like payroll would. So they would need to factor that in
Next year's.
to know that, yes, if they approve to move it out of the payroll item into the purchasing or the capital purchases line item, that's not going away in payroll. It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul this year. That'll have to go back in there, but we're gonna have to account for the 29,000 or whatever it
We're
might
gonna have
go
to
up.
address it next coming budget.
Sure.
Right.
So that's
So
something
this
they'd
is the
have to
problem
factor
before
in.
that.
So it is one of those things that sounds like it would save money in the long run to go ahead and, you just don't know on equipment if
It's
you
like
end up.
insurance, yeah.
Right.
You
You'll
pay
need
for
it if you
hope
don't have it.
Well, the
Exactly.
time that you decide you don't, I can speak
You need
for the jail, is the time you're gonna use it
Exactly.
and need it, and you didn't buy it, and it's gonna cost you more.
Our cardiac monitors are like 12 years old now. So obviously, is it last year or the year before, I can't remember,
Year before,
a CO monitor went, or module went out in one, $7,000 or $8,000 for this one CO monitoring module. So,
And you can start having problems with them pretty quick.
Well, I don't-
given their age,
I
Given
don't-
their age.
I don't know the process and what we would need to do to, or motion that would need to be made formally to shift that money, like, as you described, to make it available for this. But, I mean, it sounds like to me we
I
need
would
to,
say it need to be a motion and then
Yeah.
forwarded to Budget and Finance Committee for consideration. Is that correct, Mayor?
Would that be correct on that? Make a motion to
If-
approve
If we made a
paying this,
motion
Robin
to
and
approve this, or
Peter to pay
not
Paul
approve it, but a motion to forward this to Budget
Budget and Finance, yes. we'll
for,
work it out.
for
for a
approval.
budget amendment,
So,
possibly, a budget amendment. So that's what needs to happen, a motion needs to be made to that effect.
Could it also come out of capital projects, capital outlay? Those two titles kind of get bounced around, but there's usually money in those
Capital
buckets.
projects is usually a one-time deal.
Right,
Am I
you don't,
correct?
that's not
That's
reoccurring.
like
Our rural capital
like a
projects
remodel of
is
the station.
primarily for
That's a
water
one-time
lines and
deal.
utilities
Okay.
going
Right,
to
right.
water.
No, that's reoccurring.
This is
so
something
you're
that's gonna be
have to-
reoccurring, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't wanna go out of there.
Okay.
So,
So,
if y'all,
Well, I'll make the motion then to
thank you.
research or
Forward
tra-
to budget
to
finance.
budget finance for their attempt to, consideration to shift that money over.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor by saying aye. Okay, none opposed. Good, good deal. That's the last thing I have on the item, on our item agenda. And, the meeting next month will be the third Thursday as always in, October. And it'll be at 5 o'clock and it'll be right here.
it'd be the 19th.
It'll be, okay, the 19th at 5 o'clock here.
I will be out of state on that
You will.
date.
Does that mean Paul
Well, I
wants
guess
to
Paul
give the
can,
director's
he
report?
can fill in, give that director's report now. He can do that.
Day of the week is that third Thursday.
What day
That
of the
third
week?
Thursday is a Thursday. Always meet on the
Let's get you later on that, isn't it?
19th.
Okay, we may be having.
That's a Jay Tressler question.
Yeah.
We may be
Yeah.
having a special meeting
Little-
after that in October, and I'll pledge to this group, I can't control what the commission does, but I'll pledge to this group that I'll try to make sure they don't bring up anything about the authority. If we have a special meeting,
Special full commission meeting.
full commission meeting, yes. Let you guys continue as you are, work out whatever it is you need to work out. So if I hold a special meeting, I'm not gonna try to slide something in. I can't
Thank you.
make
Well, no,
that
'cause-
final decision, so I want
Sure.
something on the agenda, but I.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't think, I think October would be too soon. I think it just
think-
needs to
We
come up
got-
naturally like it was going to.
Terry Hirschman's got a question.
Yeah, can you recognize Commissioner Hirschman real quick?
Yes, we recognize you.
I want to address the policy. We wrote a policy to help. I know I met with Mike and a lot of the head departments. That was something that the mayor brought up when we first took our office. He would like to see us be able to pay our employees when they were trained. We did write a policy that it has been through the legislative committee. Mike's familiar with that policy that we're helping to train even a driver who comes in and starts. So that policy, I don't know where it's at right now, but I'll pledge to you, I'll find out where it's at, and we'll get it moving again.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I know that it's been passed through, I know a couple of the committees already.
We may be able to address that in late October also.
Right, because you're legislative was the last
Last
stop.
hurdle, yeah.
Last hurdle, then it goes to the commission.
And it went through budget and finance,
So,
we met
it
with all the heads of
will be
departments on that, so. And I
Okay,
thought it was a pretty
thank
good
you.
policy.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Tim?
You got something you want to say?
Yeah, my understanding of what went on tonight, it sounds like the mayor don't need the responsibility for this committee because you've got too much stuff going on already. And if Missy and Frank agree seeing, we just keep it like it's going until there is a problem.
Well, I think we've already
Is
passed
that how we took it, or is it just, as it goes, it just continues on as it is?
Right now, it continues on as it is.
Until
And
there
that's
was
the
a
next
commission.
come up to do what we,
Well,
to make the decision.
that's what I said, it can come back up another commission meeting. But if we have a special commission meeting in October, I told them I'll do everything in my power to make sure that we don't bring it back up then. Not to surprise them. Now, come November, of course, you guys are gonna have at least one more meeting between now and the November meeting, so you can work on it, but there'll be no surprises in anything in October. But they're gonna have to make that decision amongst the pilot.
That answer?
Sounds like it needs to stay like it is. By all the discussion tonight, my opinion.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll talk about it.
That being said, anybody want to say anything else before we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, so motion adjourn second. See y'all
Neil,
next
do you
week.
have anything you want to say?
You got tired of that
Make a motion that we
see in this room.